About 20 children that survived the Usindiso Building Fire and are living in temporary accommodation in Denver, Johannesburg, have not attended school since the fire on the 31st of August last year. Now, this month is the one-year anniversary since the blaze that killed over 70 people. In the aftermath of the fire, various departments, including the Education Department, had committed to protecting as well as supporting the survivors. Now, the support included ensuring that children were placed in schools provided with accommodation and necessities, as well as given trauma counselling. However, many of these commitments have not been met. Margaret Zulu from the Save the Children South Africa joins us now to weigh in on this story. Margaret, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for your time. Firstly, your reaction to these shocking news. I mean, a whole year of not going to school for these kids, not at their own will. So a serious violation of their rights as enshrined in our Constitution is taking place here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us. It's been a long time. 1 year is a long time not for a child to go to school. And we are deeply concerned about this as Save the Children, because that makes the children vulnerable to all sorts of child protection issues, including violence against children. We have heard from a group that marched some time ago to the Gauteng Premier, who indicated that they fear that their children are also susceptible to a lot of violations, and there was one that indicated that apparently one child was raped, and this is a concern for us as Save the Children. We are also aware that the Department of Education has placed some of the children, but we know that a number of children are still not placed in schools. We also know that Eco Education, their legal team, is engaging with a number of stakeholders to ensure that we all come together and we collaborate and ensure that these children are actually placed in schools. So our ask there is, first and foremost, we would like to request the Department of Education to ensure that they monitor these placements. It's one thing to indicate to the parents that those whose children have not been placed need to go to the nearby schools, but these children do not have access to social issues. We heard of one parent whose child needed at least 1,200 to pay at the school where they've been placed, and they do not have uniform. Also, some children actually are not able to go to school because of lack of access to social services, including school uniforms. But we also know that because of this fire, some children and their parents who survived actually lost their documentation, or they do not have documentation at all. And our ask to the nearby schools, as well as the Department of Education, is to please make exceptions for these children. They need to be in school. 1 year is a long time, and one child not going to school is a lot too many. We do not want to make them more vulnerable by not allowing them to be in school.
You know, Margaret, you raise very concerning issues there, particularly child protection as well as safety issues. I mean, let's look at who is to blame in the situation, because as we understand, this was a collaborative, multi-stakeholder effort. So, I mean, what should they do in order to remedy the situation? We know that during COVID, certain arrangements were made by the Education Department to actually ensure that some learners, in fact, all learners did not miss school. But why couldn't such remedies then be explored, particularly in this situation? And can then the parents of these children take the departments, the various departments or stakeholders to court on this violation? And what type of action would that entail? Do they even have the right to do this, to do so?
Yes, absolutely. We are not playing blame games. Why? Because we are all responsible for our children. We are the rights holders and we are the duty bearers as a parent, as a community leader, as a survivor, and all of us, including the media. So we all need to come together. First and foremost, it's important that we monitor. We don't just speak, but we check if we are talking about placements, has this really happened? Why is it not happening? We need to hold each other accountable. Secondly, if these children are not having trauma counseling, there's need for psychosocial therapy for these children. Why is that not happening? So we need to hold each other accountable, and our ask as Save the Children is to say, can we have this conversation? But besides having this conversation, we are aware of it, all of us, including the community leaders within the place where these children are placed together with all the survivors. What can we do? We cannot keep giving excuses. We all need to put our resources together and place these children in schools. We need to be there, all who are providing different services. We work with organizations such as REPSI, who ensure that children have access to mental health services. We work with the Department of Social Development, who also ensure that the children have access to services, including social services. We request all stakeholders, relevant stakeholders, to come together. And we are happy as Save the Children to be the convener as we are, and to ensure that we hold each other accountable. We hold accountable those departments that have made these promises, but they are not checking if this is actually happening.
Margaret, are you in any way, shape or form in contact with these various entities to just try and see, as well as gauge the progress in terms of them, of course, keeping up to their promises?
We can never do enough if we want to see the children have access to all the services that they have. And so our commitment as Save the Children is that we are going to ensure we are on the ground. We're going to ensure we continue speaking to the relevant authorities until the children have access to trauma counseling, until the children, and that should be ongoing, by the way, and we want to ensure that they are placed in schools. So we are extending our hand as Save the Children and saying, we are not condemning, we are saying, let's hold our hands and let's get these children. They survived a lot. Their families that survived, and we send condolences to the families who lost their children, who lost their loved ones, and we're saying, these children that have survived, let's help them. Let's do something for them for once. It was already enough that they were put in such living conditions, you know, and they've survived so much. We're extending our hands and we are saying, let's have collaborative efforts and ensure that the lives of these children are upheld, ensure that the children are protected, and ensure that they have access to services, because we want to see a South Africa where children's rights are upheld, they survive and they thrive.
Thank you so much for that valuable input this afternoon. That is Margaret Zulu there from Save the Children South Africa.